You ever wake up and think, well, this can't get any worse? Yeah, I used to say that every Monday, but that was before aliens dragged me off in the middle of a full-body coconut oil rub. Imagine my luck, 1 minute, I'm massaging a grumpy accountant named Linda, the next I'm being yanked through a wormhole by 7-foot-tall women who look like runway models crossed with mood lighting. I tried to play it cool. After all, who wouldn't want a little galactic adventure? Until I noticed the royal guards wore what looked suspiciously like bathrobes and had these weird stress lines on their faces. That, and the fact that one of them barked orders in perfect English. You human! We require your hands. Which, in most situations, would have sounded like the best pickup line I'd heard in weeks, but right then it felt more like an HR violation. So there I am, groggy, oily, and confused, standing in a marble hall that smelled like lavender and anxiety. The Queen, or at least I guess she was the Queen, based on the big shiny crown and the way everyone bowed whenever she sneezed, fixed me with the kind of stare I usually got when I suggested a foot rub without extra charge. Our species suffers from chronic tension. We have not produced an heir in decades. She paused, scanning me up and down like I was a questionable item at the clearance rack. Your presence is our last hope. I tried to object. I'm just a masser. I mostly do lower backs and the occasional stressed-out accountant. You probably want a fertility specialist, maybe someone with a degree in biology, not body butter. She didn't blink. Prepare the human for demonstration. Commence the ritual of release. The guards hustled me over, and suddenly, my hands became the most important thing in the galaxy. Just relax, I muttered, as much to myself as to the Queen. Let me work my magic fingers. No promises, but you'll definitely feel something. Of course, everything I said sounded wrong. At least 3 guards dropped their ceremonial towels and giggled. I started with what I knew, gentle pressure, small circles, a little deep tissue action right under the shoulders. She stiffened, then, all at once, her entire body spasmed like someone had plugged her into a socket. There was a noise sort of like a kettle about to blow, and the crown started to glow. Alarms went off. Some weird alien aromatherapy filled the room. I panicked and nearly asked for hazard pay, but the Queen's eyes rolled back in delight. The tension broke like a dam. The Queen let out a breath that probably registered on the seismic scale. And then came the applause. Actual applause. I hadn't gotten that since high school gym class, and even then it was only because I finally cleared the rope. The Queen sat up, her face radiant. He has done it. The great release. Our people are saved. She gestured to the council, who immediately began arguing about who was next. One of the counselors pointed at me. His technique is legendary. We must harness this power. For the good of all womankind. Suddenly I was hoisted onto a silk pillow by 2 bodybuilder types, both with arms the size of my thighs. Someone draped a garland of, well, it might have been fruit, but it wriggled, around my neck. The Queen declared, "From this day, you are our fertility god. You will need us all. Let me tell you, nothing ruins your sense of self-preservation like hearing the word need shouted by 1,000 hopeful women." I tried to backpedal. Look, there's got to be some mistake. Maybe it was just beginner's luck. I mean, sometimes even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? But the council was already drafting a schedule. The needing calendar. And apparently I had back-to-back sessions for the next lunar cycle. I caught my reflection in a polished pillar. Oily, terrified, dressed in what looked like a toga made from silk napkins. There was a stampede outside the chamber, voices chattering about the new touch master, hands clutching homemade offerings, a couple of them waving little massage hammers like foam fingers at a sports game. The Queen leaned in close. You must need the people. Bring them, release. Her eyes lingered on my hands like they were sacred relics. This is the part where most people would run. Or faint. I briefly considered both, but a large alien with a clipboard was already directing traffic, shouting, "Single file! No shoving! The fertility god needs a break every 3rd needing." No one listened. Alien etiquette, it turns out, is just as bad as human. Somewhere between the fourth and fifth great release, I realized I wasn't dreaming. Or dead. Or on a hidden camera show. I was just really in demand. And if I didn't pace myself, I'd pull a muscle in a whole new galaxy. I tried humor. You know, on Earth, we charge by the hour for this. Someone heard charge and offered to wire me enough credits to buy a small moon. When I said, I need a breather, 3 healers tried to massage me in return. I couldn't tell if this was the weirdest day of my life, or just Tuesday in the multiverse. Everywhere I looked, hopeful faces beamed at me, expecting miracles from my touch. One woman asked if I could double knead. Another wanted to know if I could teach group release techniques. At one point, I swear someone requested an autograph on her bicep. I glanced at the Queen, who simply smiled. You have awakened hope, Earthman. Our people will thrive. You may need as many as you wish, or as few. But you must need someone. The crowd erupted again. By the time the next client sat down, I knew 2 things. 1. I would never look at a spa menu the same way again. 2. When the universe calls on you for your unique skills, you better have strong hands, and a good sense of humor. And maybe a really good lawyer. Being worshipped isn't as glamorous as it sounds. I barely got to breathe before the next wave of hopeful faces crashed into my personal space like a tidal wave at a water park. Alien hands tugged at me, some gentle, some less so, while a high-pitched voice read out a list of priority releases that, judging by the length, would take a year even if I never slept. The council insisted it would rejuvenate the line, but I was starting to worry about my own. They brought out a royal ledger, more like a scroll that rolled halfway across the chamber floor, listing every woman who'd waited for the touch. Names, titles, some with detailed notes like extra tension, prefers gentle kneading, allergic to chamomile. You ever think your work calendar is bad? Try one that lists, in detail, every part of every body you're expected to address. My hands were famous now. The holy palms? Someone whispered. The divine fingers. I wish they'd called me something like Brad the Reluctant. But no one ever asked the talent. At least half the kingdom queued for private sessions. The first was the Queen's second cousin, stiff as a board, eyes wide with hope, nervous about her first release. She blurted out, Is it supposed to tingle? And I tried to keep a straight face. Sometimes the first time is intense. Word spread. Some brought gifts, flowers, fruit, a robe made of what I prayed was just synthetic fur. One nervous royal handed me a jar labeled euphoric massage paste, used liberally. The guards offered security, but honestly, I felt safer with the guards outside, not watching my every move. Then came the questions. How do humans do it so easily? Can you teach us the double knead? What if I'm already relaxed? Can you make me even looser? One noblewoman, reading from a book titled 1001 Human Release Techniques, asked if I could demonstrate the standing swirl. I tried to explain that was for advanced clients only. A royal scientist asked for a sample of my DNA, purely for research. Another one tried to fit my hands with enhancement gloves that looked like oven mitts with light-up fingertips. I declined. The last thing I needed was for my hands to glow every time I brushed against someone. The news got out. Earthman Touch Master, Savior of the Species, read one banner. A group of fans waved Need me signs and tried to get selfies, but the security bots shooed them away. The palace kitchen even renamed the daily bread Divine Loaf, needed by the gods' will. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing when the chef asked if I'd like a taste of my own kneading. And then jealousy, never far from worship. One burly alien suitor, who looked like he benched spacecraft for fun, cornered me near the rose gardens. You touch her, I touch you, he growled. I put up my hands. Buddy, I'm only here for professional release. That got misinterpreted. He immediately signed up for a slot, asking for The works. After that, they assigned me 2 bodyguards, one whose job was to fetch towels and one whose job was to keep anyone from getting ideas about my sacred implements. Both were more interested in my technique than my safety. The first asked if I could knead his sore neck, while the second just winked every time I said, "Firm pressure." Alien media had a field day. A late-night host called me the miracle meat tenderizer, while tabloids speculated on how many sessions I could handle per day. I saw myself drawn as a cartoon, buff arms, rays of light shooting from my palms, hearts in every corner. "He's got the touch," was the headline. I was never even that popular at summer camp. No break in sight. The Ministry of Release brought me a schedule, dawn to dusk, with every session supervised by certified witnesses, to ensure no shortcuts. I tried to get out of it. Humans require 8 hours of rest. But they just offered me a sleep pod shaped like a giant hand. I declined. Between sessions, the council pestered me with proposals. "We wish to institutionalize your kneading. Would you be interested in a chair on the National Board of Touch? Could you train a new generation of kneaders?" They even tried to name a star after me. I asked if it came with paid vacation. Sometimes I thought about Earth. At least there, if someone wanted a happy ending, they just left a good tip. Here, I got worshipped, offered ceremonial oils, and begged to release everyone from their burdens. If only Linda the accountant could see me now. The Queen called a special session. "The royal kneading ceremony is to be made official. You will lead it." She gestured to a golden podium shaped like, well, let's say it was anatomically optimistic. The entire court watched as she outlined my sacred duties in excruciating detail. One ambassador leaned over and asked, "Can you do 2 at once?" I choked on my mineral water. An alien dignitary from a neighboring system interrupted, tall, tough, with armor that glowed. "If your technique is so potent, prove it. Need one of us. Or face the consequences." The council gasped. I nearly asked for a stunt double. The Queen leaned in, voice low. "We need peace with their world. You must show them your hands." I almost quipped, "I hope they're not ticklish," but thought better of it. My luck, that'd be a diplomatic incident. I finally got a break, if you can call it that, when a group of alien children snuck in for junior kneading lessons. I gave them a demonstration, gentle back pats, goofy faces, even a little song about kneading your way to happiness. Their laughter rang through the halls, the only moment I truly felt at ease. Later that night, staring at my tired hands, I wondered how long I could keep this up. Was I a hero or just a glorified massage therapist with a knack for trouble? Either way, tomorrow promised more pressure. Literally. The Queen sent a message as I crawled into bed. "Rest well, fertility god. Tomorrow you need for peace." And that was the kind of pillow talk I never expected to hear. Turns out, interplanetary diplomacy is just as stressful as back-to-back deep tissue appointments. The morning started with a summons from the Queen, her advisors buzzing like caffeinated bees. The rival ambassador had arrived, muscles on display, face set in a scowl, ready to judge my legendary hands. Apparently, my next client was a diplomat who could break me in half if I needed her the wrong way. The council briefed me on proper etiquette, as if a crash course in interstellar manners would make my jokes any less awkward. "Remember," one droned, "their people see kneading as a challenge. Show respect but do not submit. If you lose, our planet's honor is at stake." I wanted to protest, but they were already oiling up my hands, babbling about prime performance and lasting impressions. The ambassador, taller than most of her entourage and with biceps like hovercar tires, looked me up and down and smirked. "You are the famous fertility god? I expected someone sturdier." I tried to sound confident. "It's all in the technique, not the packaging." Her eyebrow arched. "We shall see. In my world, a proper kneading brings peace, or war." Word spread like wildfire. Courtiers placed bets on how many releases I could get before tapping out. I'm pretty sure the Queen herself had a side wager on whether I'd survive the day. I was more worried about pulling a hamstring. The duel was set. 1 table, 2 chairs, a crowd humming with anticipation. The rival ambassador took her place, arms crossed, lips curled in a smirk that said, "Impress me." I flexed my fingers, told myself not to drop any double entendres, and promptly failed as soon as I opened my mouth. "I hope you're ready for the full service." Someone in the back nearly fainted. The first touch, she tensed. I kept my grip firm, careful not to offend, though every instruction from the crowd, "Deeper! Don't stop now!" sounded like the world's weirdest motivational seminar. A minute in, she whispered, "Is this all humans offer? I've had stronger kneading from my training squad." I bit back a retort, switched to the old earth favorite, the twist and press. She grunted, shoulders resisting, but I noticed her foot twitch. I upped the pressure, accidentally, catching a pressure point just below her shoulder blade. She gasped. "What was that?" I grinned. "Just a little human improvisation. Sometimes the best release is a surprise." She tried to hide her reaction, but the crowd noticed. The first sign of relaxation was a tiny smile. Of course, nothing's ever simple. The ambassador's aides started heckling, tossing advice and not-so-subtle threats. "Careful, human, one slip and you'll start a war. That's not how we need at home." The Queen's advisors bickered among themselves, debating whether my technique was too aggressive or not aggressive enough. All I could do was keep going, smooth circles, alternating pressure, sneaking in a thumb roll I'd learned from an old spa manager with a questionable diploma. Then the ambassador started laughing, quiet at first, then louder, until it echoed around the chamber. "I see now. Human kneading is about more than muscle. You use humor to distract, to disarm." She nearly doubled over, clutching her sides. The crowd stared, unsure if this was a victory or a disaster. I shrugged. "If you can't laugh, you can't release. That's the secret." Suddenly, everyone wanted to try the laughter release. The duel devolved into chaos, alien officials lining up for punchlines, demanding to know if I could do stand-up comedy while massaging. Someone brought in a joke book, insisting I read from it while working their shoulders. The Queen, trying not to laugh herself, declared, "We must institutionalize the laughter need." Meanwhile, the rival ambassador, now red-faced and wiping tears, announced, "You have bested me. I will recommend peace. But be warned, if word of this reaches my world, every warrior will want your touch." I didn't know if that was a promise or a threat. The Queen beamed, and the crowd cheered, chanting something that probably translated to, "Need us next?" My translator earpiece was starting to short out from overuse. In the aftermath, the council wanted to make things official, an interplanetary need accord. There was paperwork, of course, and a ceremonial feast where every dish was needed in my honor. I barely tasted the food, too busy fielding requests for tutorials, interviews, and even a live demonstration for galactic broadcast. My hands were sore, my voice hoarse, and my sense of self-preservation at an all-time low. Just when I thought I'd get a moment to myself, the Queen called me aside. Her tone was softer, almost shy. "There is one ritual you have not yet performed. The royal final kneading. It is the most sacred of all. It must be completed before sunrise." She placed a hand over mine, her gaze searching. "You have given our people hope. Can you give me one last release?" Suddenly, the room felt very small. I wanted to say something smooth, but all I managed was, "I'll give it everything I've got." The Queen smiled. "That's all any god can do." As I prepared for what might be the most important kneading of my life, my mind flashed back to home, my old boss, my empty tip jar, my last customer review. Hands too soft, jokes too corny. Here, the things that made me ordinary on Earth had turned me into a legend. And yet I still felt like the same awkward guy who tripped over his own feet and forgot to charge extra for aromatherapy. One last time, I flexed my fingers, rolled my shoulders, and reminded myself, in a galaxy of tension, a little human touch goes a long way. And maybe, just maybe, being a fertility god wasn't the worst gig in the universe, so long as I survived the final need. I always thought final performance sounded like something only rock stars and washed-up actors talked about, but that night, as the entire planet buzzed about the royal final needing, I understood the pressure. My hands tingled with both exhaustion and nerves. Word had spread, this was the need that would decide the fate of the royal line, maybe the fate of the species. No one wanted to see the fertility god choke on the last act. My inbox, yes, the aliens set up an intergalactic messaging account for me, was full of tips and warnings. Try the double thumb twist! Don't forget to stretch. Whatever you do, avoid the left lower quadrant. It tickles the queen and she might banish you to the salt mines. The Ministry of Release sent a protocol packet with enough rules to make a tax accountant sweat, but most of it boiled down to, don't mess this up. The queen waited in the chamber of continuity, looking more relaxed than I felt. I realized for the first time that she was nervous too. Maybe she was thinking about all the stories and rituals, all the ancient prophecies about the human touch. Maybe she just wanted this to work as badly as I did. That, at least, I could relate to. She greeted me with a smile that was equal parts regal and vulnerable. No pressure, she whispered, but her eyes sparkled with hope and a hint of mischief. I took a deep breath and tried to remember why I ever got into this business. The answer was simple: people needed release, and I was good at helping them let go. I approached the royal final needing the same way I would any big job. I listened first. She told me stories about the pressure of ruling, the tension of never living up to the myth. She admitted she'd always worried that her reign would be the last, that she'd be remembered as the queen who couldn't produce an heir. She laughed, a nervous tinkle, and said, "Maybe it takes a human to show us how to loosen up." With that, I got to work, focusing not on any ancient alien technique but on what I knew best, being present. I let my hands move naturally, reading her body language, adjusting pressure with every breath and sigh. There were a few moments of awkward laughter as I accidentally hit the forbidden tickle zone, but she just squeezed my hand and told me to keep going. I cracked a joke about the universal language of knots, and for a moment, all the formalities slipped away. It was just two people, trying to get it right. Halfway through, the queen gasped, not from pain but from surprise. "That's new," she said. "Is that a human custom?" I grinned. "That's the patented double backflip need. Very rare, only offered to royalty." She rolled her eyes, but the tension melted off her face. It wasn't about power or prophecy anymore. It was about relief, laughter, and connection. By the end, the chamber of continuity echoed with her laughter, her hair tousled, cheeks glowing. She looked younger, lighter, and the crowd outside must have sensed it, because soon the whole palace was alive with cheers and celebration songs. The queen squeezed my hand. "You've given us more than hope. You've given us joy. Maybe even a new beginning." The council stormed in, nearly tripping over each other in their hurry. "Has the royal line been restored?" someone blurted. The queen winked at me and said, "Let's just say, there's been a release of epic proportions." The advisors erupted in applause, a few fanned themselves with relief, and someone handed me a golden plaque inscribed with "Champion of the Need, Savior of the Species, Hero with the Healing Hands." It was the sort of thing that would make my old boss at the massage parlor eat his business card. There was a brief, awkward moment when the palace announcer tried to start a new chant. "Long live the fertility god!" But I waved him off. Maybe just Brad is fine. Or, Supreme Touch Master if you're feeling formal. The queen laughed and declared a planetary holiday. "From this day forth, we celebrate the Festival of Release, in honor of the human who taught us to laugh at our knots." The days that followed were a whirlwind of parties, banquets, interviews, and of course, more requests for one last meeting. I made a rule, only one per person per day. Even a fertility god needs his rest. Still, the lines stretched for miles, and every alien I met had a story, a joke, or a recipe for relaxation stew they swore would help my hands recover. I learned more about their world in that week than I ever did on Earth, how laughter really was their best medicine, how every family had a story about the Great Release, and how sometimes all it took was a stranger's touch to bring hope. But the universe never lets you rest for long. Soon, ambassadors from half a dozen star systems started sending formal requests for an appointment. The message was always the same. Our world suffers from unbearable tension. Will the fertility god grant us a session? The council started debating licensing deals and franchising opportunities. One advisor seriously suggested I launch a Holonet channel. Need across the stars. It was flattering, but I knew I couldn't stay forever. At a final banquet, the Queen pulled me aside. You have given us more than you know. But what will you do now? I thought about it. Earth, my old life, the missed connections and the tips I'd never gotten. And I realized, for the first time, I wasn't running away from anything. I'd made a difference, and I was ready for whatever came next. I think it's time I go home, I said. But don't worry, I'll always have a need for this place. She rolled her eyes, groaned, and hugged me, laughing. Go, Brad. And thank you for everything. They sent me home with a hero's farewell and a suitcase full of gifts, alien oils, an honorary degree in intergalactic touch therapy, and enough massage appointments booked for the next 2 centuries. Back on Earth, I opened my own place. Brad's Universal Release. Business boomed. My first client was Linda the accountant, who complained about her shoulders but left with a grin. Word got out. Lines of blue-skinned tourists stretched down the block. There were requests from other planets, other queens. Sometimes I'd get a thank you note on my intergalactic inbox, usually with a joke about knots, tension, or that legendary final meeting. Life never did get boring again. And if anyone asked me how I saved a species, I'd just smile, flex my fingers, and say, it's all in the touch. After all, in a universe full of pressure, sometimes the thing everyone really needs is just a little human release.